To be or not to be? Oh, I'm sorry. I messed that up. 10C or not 10C? Let's get right into this podcast.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to C or Not 10C. My name's Jonathan, and I'll walk us through group introductions, so as well as takeaways. So, the reading this week challenged the notion that the commodification of the human body in the context of parenthood is inherently immoral through illustrating the fact that it can both benefit and harm different parties. The markets for these parenthood methods, though controversial in existence or by nature, they still do exist, and they do have tangible benefits, including enabling same-sex couples, single parents, or other non-typical heteronormative couples so they can form families. This redefining of parenthood is empowering, but I believe it does raise some concerns about how market forces have ended up shaping people's personal and social values.
Nice.
Hey y'all. I'm Bart. The reading points out that we are currently engaging in a horrible topic of selling parenthood, which morally seems like a definite no-go. However, it still happens in today's society. Higher costs to adapt to the modern world, such as adoption and sperm donation, even help to fuel the somehow legal quote unquote selling of babies. However, the author wants to look at the markets and assist other families to assist single mothers or gay parents in creating families through choice rather than not needing biology.
All right. Okay. So, hi guys, this is me, Sheikh Shazib. Today are we talking about like how Earthman suggests that parenthood markets are already embedded in society, shifting the focus to how they operate in practice. While these markets can expand access to family formation, they also risk deepening structural inequalities, particularly along lines of race, gender, and class by privileging those with greater economic resources.
Mhm.
These tensions suggest that commodification in this context is not neutral but actively shapes who is able to form and sustain families.
Thank you so much, Sheikh. My name is Miguel, and I've noted that this manuscript just demonstrates the importance of reviewing our societally constructed biases and cognitions regarding what is ideal for our society in our day and age. A concept that can be extrapolated to multiple dimensions of our societal system. It is evident that socially constructed systems or moral perspectives of establishment change over time. Specifically, as humans change over time, a lot of societal structures that possibly were ideal for us to begin with might not be the best now. So a lot of the systems that have been implemented in the past tend to be not as, ideal for the current system, especially for marginalized communities. And it does go to show that a lot of our societal structures do have systemic racism in it. So that leads to under supporting certain populations as well.
Hey, my name is Zach. I believe that Ertman argues that parenthood markets already exist, so the focus should be on how they operate rather than whether they should exist at all. She shows that these markets can both expand across to the family formation, and it also reinforces inequalities, especially around race, gender, and class. Ultimately, she calls for a more nuanced case by case understanding of commodification rather than treating it as inherently right or wrong.
Okay, I'm Harry, and earlier in this lecture discuss about the existence of parenthood markets and how people feel towards it. People used to feel negative emotions regarding the issue of commodification, but the truth is, commodification
Mhm.
already exists. Erdman points out the benefits of parenthood markets and how it provides a better platform for many families. Erdman discussed adoption and the price of adopting a child, the development of surrogacy, in vitro fertilization, and artificial insemination has been ongoing for a long time. and legalization is evolving, reflecting a relatively open policy towards these technologies. However, there are still issues such as ethical concerns about parenthood.
Hi guys, this is Crystal. So something that really stuck with me from the reading is how it kind of exposes a contradiction. Like, we all say that parenthood shouldn't be something that involves money, but at the same time, we built systems where it already does. So whether it's adoption, IVF, sperm donation, there's already a financial side to all of this. So in a way, these parenthood markets aren't new. They're just something we don't always acknowledge. I think what made this reading interesting for me is that it didn't just take a strong stance and say, oh, this is wrong. It actually allows us to sit in a little bit of an uncomfortable middle space, because on one side, these systems can be really meaningful. They give people who might not otherwise be able to have children a chance to form families, and that can be very empowering. But it also kind of shifts the idea of family away from just biology and more towards intention. On the other hand, it's hard to ignore the issues that come with it, like the cost, for example. These processes can be very expensive, and that makes it feel like access to parenthood in some cases would depend on financial resources. So once we start thinking about that, it connects to bigger things like inequality, especially when race and class can shape outcomes in ways that don't feel fair. I think that my biggest takeaway is that this isn't something that we can just label as good or bad. It's more about recognizing that these systems already exist and asking better questions about them. Like, not just should this be happening, but more like who benefits from this, who doesn't, and how can it be more fair. I think that overall the reading made me think about parenthood not just as a personal or emotional experience, but something that's also shaped by larger systems and structures that we don't always pay attention to.
So the first thing that really stood out to me is even though most people feel like money and parenthood shouldn't mix, Erman shows that these markets are already happening through adoption and reproductive technologies. So instead of asking, whether they should exist, do you guys think the real question is how they're working and whether they're fair?
I think it's a bit of a stretch to say that they should or shouldn't exist. I mean, um, having that moral question of whether or not they should exist is always going to be there. I mean, your point being is you can't just take them away. Whereas the moral question is they should. I feel like they should be taken away. Those kinds of things. I think that your point is valid to an extent. Her point is valid to an extent, but she's kind of stretching um, the moral question and the morality of the whole situation by saying that by saying you shouldn't look at it. She's kind of overlooking it, in my opinion.
I
I'll
see. So you kind of think that oh, sorry, Mika,
no,
but
go ahead.
You just think that she's kind of brushing over this like elephant in the room almost. Like
Exactly.
why are we still acting like this is not a huge moral dilemma between
Exactly. I feel like
between
she is looking at it from a logical perspective. However, she doesn't have as much morality as I believe that someone should.
I'll
But
ask
that
you
is my
guys.
personal
I'll
opinion.
ask you guys though, who decides morality? What's morality?
That's
I
a good
mean,
question. That's a very deep question, for sure.
morality is one of those things that's always debated after the fact or before the
Mhm.
fact. It's really hard to care about meaning in the context of actual like situations where means like this would end up being used. I think maybe one good follow-up just to help jog us along is Bart, do you not think that individual situations where maybe artificial insemination or surrogacy, do you think that those maybe just situations uh like a, like someone who can't deliver a baby to term who's infertile, but they still want to have a family, like the existence of that doesn't justify like the ends to the or the means to the end for you, Bart? Or
Well, I think that adoption as an idea, as a concept, isn't such a bad idea. I mean, there's mothers that don't have the resources to be able to care
Mhm.
for someone, and there's other mothers that, well, soon to be mothers that would like to be able to have that ability to choose whether or not they would a child. I feel like the morality question just has to do with the financial aspect of it.
Mhm.
I feel like um, the centers for which adoption happens, the adoption centers should be eh, entirely governmentally funded, and they shouldn't they shouldn't be um as she is stating, quote unquote, selling the babies to people.
Yeah. I kind of want to go back to a quote that Erman actually said is
Mhm.
children who are racial minorities, such as African American children, are sometimes cheaper to adopt than white children, a differential that seems to turn more on supply and demand rather than on agencies expending more money to place white children. I think this kind of highlights a negative effect of the parenthood market, showing how market forces like supply and demand can assign different values to children based on race, and that kind of reinforces existing social inequalities. You guys agree with that?
No, yeah,
yeah,
I would
I
agree.
really see
Yeah,
your point. It's like
yeah.
because of just the nature of economics, as well as like the market forces that you're mentioning, there's going to be like
Yeah.
like those our
That,
society's values are almost going to emerge in those types of ways via the supply and demand for like white children versus non-white children. So that definitely does raise like a good point on how like even though like maybe like non-traditional idea or non-traditional examples of parenthood are still important, like the
Mm-hmm.
example of adoption. But when you bring in money, like Bart mentioned, like it just gets very messy. So
Mhm.
that's a
Exactly.
good that
I'll,
is a really good point that you bring up.
and I'll ask you guys again, who puts the price on our skin color?
See, that just goes back to the the social and structural inequalities in the end.
Exactly.
And that's just
Yeah,
it's just pure racism in the end. Supply
yeah,
and
Yeah,
demand on children. It's crazy to me.
yeah.
yeah.
So let me ask you this. I mean, I
Mhm,
think Ertman is kind of pushing more towards the policymakers with some of the things that she brings up. Um,
mhm.
I know that Bart may have mentioned that it should be the government's role. Do you guys also believe it should be the government's role? And if not, who?
I would argue that the government's the one that put the price on our skin. I mean, at least previous government, right? I mean, I can't speak for future government or not so much maybe what's going on now because there's
Mm-hmm.
changes happening in the system, but our original government or like even the foundation of this country is like was built upon
Built on
systematic.
Yeah,
racism
I,
for
I
sure, and
suppose
Yeah.
inequalities.
architecture
I
and
suppose when I
Yeah.
mention
Hmm.
government, I
Hmm.
I'm thinking of an ideal government
Hmm.
Mm,
under our constitution
Hmm.
and actually
Yeah.
following the fact that you cannot put a price on a person and everyone
mhm.
has rights.
Hmm.
However, obviously that comes to fault in a lot of different cases.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I mean, in today's government, I understand why people would say they shouldn't have a say over that. They shouldn't have control over that. But I'm
Hmm.
thinking in the ideal constitutional government that we created back when it was first made in 1776.
That makes sense. Do you guys think that like there should be financial aid? Like maybe through our taxpayer dollars, perhaps. Like maybe we could put um, policies forward that help families adopt um, the perfect child for a good price point, rather than them paying extra for the adoption fees.
think it's gonna be
I think that's
That
complicated because you mentioned like the
yeah.
perfect child and to me it goes I feel like if you want to have a child it's your responsibility to have a child and if you're not ready to
Mm-hmm.
have a child and that could be in a lot of different dimensions, you know, if you plan on having a child alternative to the quote unquote traditional method, then you should be prepared for the costs because if you can't even handle the cost to have the child or create the child or whatever however you're going to do it,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
how are you going to actually going to take care of the child beyond
guess.
the measure as well, you know.
So
So
are you
like
saying like babies born through like the entire hospital system, like the
Mhm.
parents have to end up paying for their hospital stay and many other fees? So it would be fair like for these other
Well,
families
yeah,
to be hit with the
yeah.
adoption fees.
No, what I'm saying is like if you want to have a child, you should be prepared to have a child, whatever that means, right? And that's the
Of
thing.
course.
Sometimes people
No,
have
that
children and they're not prepared to have children,
Oh, I
and
see
they'll
what you're
put them
yeah.
onto
saying with the
adoption or
Yeah,
whatever.
financial aid.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, why am
that's a
I
really
gonna
good
pay
point.
for other people to have children
Mhm.
if it's their responsibility to have their own children? Like I want to have my children. Who's gonna take care of my
Yeah, I
children?
mean,
And that's why I would
yeah,
highlight that actually would make me highlight this quote that I'm going to throw in about functional families, right? So the quote goes on to say, focusing on alternative insemination, this article contends that a relatively unregulated parenthood market is beneficial because it facilitates formation of families on the basis of intent and function rather than biology and heterosexuality. So, like I mentioned, it does highlight that there are some families that are focused on like having a children, whatever that is, and it's hard for them to do that for whatever reason. Either they're LGBTQ or there's other also dimensions that restrain them as well. But these people could probably be the best parents. So these type of opportunities that are shared with them and these measures that's actually mentioned in the article can actually be positive for them, because I know that there's a lot of people who had children that probably didn't deserve to have children, and then there are a lot of negative. It'd be argued that because of those decisions they made, it brings like a negative effect to the macro system of our society as well.
Well, unfortunately, we are out of time. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us and listening to our rant. But thank you guys uh, so much.